Hello and welcome to our 4th episode of our Past Presents Our Future, our 61st annual fundraiser, where we're getting a sneak peek at our coming season and our new space. I'm Scott Mason, and here's my co-host Michelle Opaleski. Tonight's episode is all about the Foxy Mrs. Bumstead Lee, the 3rd show, which will be in 2025, of our 90th season. It's based on a play called Mrs. Bumstead Lee.
Well, what makes her foxy?
Well, we'll get to that in just a bit, but I think first we should talk about the significance of the original Mrs. Bumstead Lee.
Yes, the original Mrs. Bumstead Lee was the very first show that CSP ever performed in 1935.
90 years ago.
90 years ago. At Mitchell Hall at the University of Delaware, when we were the University Drama Group. We have moved since then from Mitchell Hall, from barn to barn, to the present location at 27 North Chapel Street, the theater we all know and love.
Yes, and we're sitting in the green room, probably the last time you may see it before it gets demolished, and we're in our new space. And did you know, Michelle, speaking of our new space, if you stand outside our new space and you look across White Clay Creek, one of the barns you mentioned, if it was still standing, you'd be able to see it. Unfortunately, they tore it down, but it's sort of like, you know, we've come full circle with where we were in the barn and where we are in our new space.
Very, very cool. So I still don't know why Mrs. Bumstead Lee is now Foxy.
So the original play was written, Michelle, in 1919. And let's just say it's not exactly Shakespeare language, but it's kind of stilted for our time. And some of the themes and some of the things they say are not quite appropriate now. So I'm writing a whole new story. Some of the same characters, most of the same plot, but because it is different, the director and I decided to rename it The Foxy Mrs. Bumstead Lee. And if you want to find out why it's foxy, well, now tune in to the director of the show, an award-winning actress, director, stage manager, and one of our chairs of the board, Susie Oak.
Thank you, Michelle and Scott. I am so excited about directing this original play, especially because it is inspired by the very first show that was ever done by our group. The Foxy Mrs. Bumstead Lee is a tale about a liberal-minded, larger-than-life titular character and her somewhat dotty mother, who are British nobility, attempting to finalize the engagement of the youngest sister to the son of a very wealthy matriarch in the Hamptons in Long Island. But in the twisting story here, this comedy that takes place in the 1970s, nothing is quite as it appears. So we add to that a maid who has her own agenda, a confused butler, some nosy neighbors, a stoner because it's the 1970s, and a scheming cemetery landscaper. And it can only take the cunningly quick-witted Mrs. Bumstead Lee to save the day and her face. There are some serious twists and turns in this new take on an old classic, and I am very excited about getting started. Thank you, have a good night, and let's get back to the hosts.
And
okay,
so
then
tomorrow,
we're gonna... No,
Michelle,
go ahead.
no. Michelle. Ladies first.
Age before beauty.
So, please tune in tomorrow night, if I haven't killed my co-host, to find out more about our 90th season and our new space. Same CSP time, same CSP streaming locations. Good night.
Good night.